Certainly skewed that way. I mean, I don't want to start gender warfare because, frankly, I'd give money to a goat if I'd get a return. But the truth is, if you look at my portfolio over 9 years, and that's a long time in small private companies as a result of Shark Tank and all the auxiliary companies I get to see because of the Shark Tank platform. Not some of my returns, all of my returns have come from the ones run by women. Or
So first point here, I forgot to jot a note. He didn't say some of his returns. He said all of his returns are coming from female-led companies. For perspective, I don't know what the exact number is, but from my experience in Entrepreneurs Org in Toronto, there was 145 members in the chapter in Toronto to qualify. You had to be the founder of the business and be doing at least $1 million a year in sales. I was in 2 forums during that time, and I've had females in the forum. There's usually about 9 to 10 people per forum, and there's usually 1 to 2 females per group. So I'd say it's probably fair to say that somewhere between 10 and 15%, maybe as high as 20%, depending on the region, are female-led companies. I don't know any of them personally that had gone bankrupt or had any strong financial issues, but they structure themselves in an interesting way, which I have a feeling we're going to get from O'Leary right here. Let's hear them out.
owned by women. And I speculate it's for 2 reasons. Number one is they're extremely strong at time management skills. That old adage, if you want something done, give it to a busy mother, turns out to be true in companies that are generally doing, in my case, between 5 and 500 million in
I've never heard that. If you want something done, give it to a busy mother. That's new.
sales. So small numbers, the average size is 20 employees. They're extremely strong at allocating the time skills of those people. But secondly, and this is the most fascinating one to me, when I look at the goals that are met on a quarterly basis, particularly in revenue on the companies run by women, they achieve those goals 90% of the time versus 65% of the time on the ones that I own.
Okay, so one of the points he's making here is that when women set revenue goals, which you're going to get from a guy like O'Leary, he's going to invest his money, you're going to take his capital, you're going to deploy it for whatever you need, whether it's hiring, equipment, expansion, whatever it happens to be, marketing. And then he's going to ask you, okay, well, what are your revenue goals? Like last year you did 5 mil in sales. What do you expect to do in the next 12 months? And what he's saying here is that women hit the revenue goals 90% of the time. He says the male-led companies only hit the revenue goals 65% of the time. Let's see if he tells us why that is.
Run by men. And we've basically got about 44 companies in this portfolio and a long period of time.
Sorry, so it was 44 companies over 9 years. I thought it was 40, but it's 44 companies.
Well over 7 years. So by setting goals that are achievable, here's my theory, you get less staff turnover, morale stays higher. And when you're a company with only 15 or 20 people.
So he's saying that when these female-led companies set goals that are more reasonable and they achieve them, staff morale remains higher. I'm not going to disagree with it, but I'm not going to vehemently agree with it either. I don't know that that's it. Let's take a listen to the rest of this clip and go to the next one and see if there's something there.
And you lose the head salesperson or the person responsible for logistics. It's extremely disruptive. And perhaps that's why these women-led companies are doing a better job, setting goals that are achievable and allocating time skills or time management in a much more effective way. And as a result now, generally in new deals, I tell the guys that are running O'Leary Ventures, skew towards the women-led deals. We're just making.
All right. So that's interesting. Now, he didn't mention it here in this soundbite. Let's see if we can get it off. Is this one over here? What men can learn from female CEOs. Let's switch over to the next one. Because one of the things I heard in the other podcast that I was listening to, what is this? What men can learn from women CEOs. This is it over here. Chrome tab and share audio. Boom. Okay, so let's just pull that out for a sec. So one of the things he didn't mention in that soundbite from that news interview was that men set higher goals than women. So women aren't achieving the same revenue goals that men are setting. They're achieving the revenue goals 90% of the time as they set them. What we know about the difference between men and women is that men will generally more often than not play to win, and women will generally more often than not play not to lose. Similar sort of sounding thing, but they're not the same. Of all the companies and all the entrepreneurs that I know that have had hyper growth, like massive growth. In fact, when Profit Magazine was giving out the awards for the fastest growing companies in Canada for the Profit 50, Profit 100, Profit 200, there was some female-led companies that I met at those awards and the subsequent weekend retreats, but none of them were in the top, I'm going to say 10 or 15 for sure. I didn't, or I can't blatantly recall them. So a lot of the fastest growing companies with the highest percentage of growth seem still to be run by men because high testosterone, greater risks, higher levels of ambition, obviously. And this isn't to disparage women or to say, men are better or anything like these. Like, this is just facts, right? Men are generally, like, there's a reason why more men ride motorcycles, right? Men like taking risks. Women, not so much. They generally play not to lose. So he didn't hit on it here, but he did hit on it in the other podcast. And he said men are setting much higher goals than women, and they're not hitting them. Women are setting goals that they hit, generally speaking, because they're lower, because, again, they play not to lose rather than play to win. So that's the reasoning behind it. He didn't mention it there in that clip. Let's just pull up this other one over here and see what we got on. The title of this one says, Kevin O'Leary, What Men Can Learn from Women CEOs. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's hit replay.
It's fascinating. You both mentioned nurturing here for a second. I mean, Kevin, traditionally, there are a lot of people that believed that women were going to be too soft. They're all about sort of the heart aspect when it comes to the head, when it comes to having to make difficult business decisions, that they're not able to do it. Do you feel like we're still sort of stuck in that mindset a little bit? And how do you feel like we're going to bring some of the fuddy-duddies into the 21st century?
I think what's happening here, and we're just seeing some anecdotal evidence of it as we talk to these women, is they tend to set goals that are achievable, and therefore they have less risk in their businesses because...
Okay, he touched on it there. Women set, he's calling them achievable goals, right? There's something called a BHAG. I don't know if you guys have heard about this before, but BHAG is an acronym for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. A BHAG is generally something that a company, usually a startup with a very small staff, they'll plaster it on the wall, or they'll come up with these BHAGs, which are like pretty crazy things. Like, I remember we had some BHAGs on this Can You Imagine wall. So we had this wall in our office that said, Can you imagine? It would say things like, getting a banner advertisement on the highway, being featured on breakfast television, morning news, which we managed to get actually most of these now that I'm reflecting back on it. But you generally set these like higher numbers. It's like, okay, we're looking for 75% growth this year, which isn't normal. I mean, in a startup company, it's reasonably normal, but in an older company, not so much. Like very old companies, GM, Ford, Chrysler, Xerox, stuff like that. They don't grow very fast, maybe a few percent per year, but they generally are highly profitable. They throw off dividends and they're great for investors. So, a lot of those blue chips, have themselves sorted. But where O'Leary is making his money is he's making his money off these startups that are growing and hitting goals. So he's saying right here, women set lower goals and they hit them. I'm going to use the word lower. He's saying achievable, but they're not setting goals as audacious as the men seem to be setting.
They set goals that actually they can make because they just have an intuitive feeling that it's within reach, and they deliver. So
intuitive feelings, right? Men don't have intuitive feelings. Only women have intuition.
One of the biggest challenges, if you have a lot of bravado and perhaps too much testosterone, you set goals for your employees you can never make. You want to feel rah-rah. You want to feel good about setting something in sales, for example, that you're never going to get
there
to.
It is.
And then ultimately, when it's clear you're not going to get there, you start to take inordinate risk to try and make up for the gap. That's what I think is happening in some of the businesses run by men. And I'm kind of agnostic to this. I don't pick sides. I'm just saying the results for me, as measured in the only thing that matters in business, cash flow, is on the side of women. I'm just getting more capital back. They've de-risked my business that way. And I think we could all learn from whatever they're doing and apply it to everybody so that men...
So it sounded like from the prior interview that he was talking about instructing his people during due diligence to really spend a lot more time on the female-led companies, because in the past they've generated better returns for him, or the source of his returns. That's interesting, right? Because imagine the roles were flipped and somebody like him or someone else on Shark Tank, said something like, well, I get better returns from men, so I'm only going to invest in men. That's essentially what he was saying in the other clip. But I mean, you couldn't get away with that language today, especially on mainstream media, TV shows like Shark Tank. They would try to cancel his ass right away.
And could take, sort of a playbook from them and say, why don't I do the same thing? Because at the end of the day, business is about risk. You put money out, you determine what's the probability of getting it back, but not just your original capital, you need to get a return. And so I anticipated all of these businesses that we're talking to these women in, Wicked Good Cupcakes, Honey Fund, they're really good.
That's the other thing too. Like the companies that women run, they run in areas of like their expertise. It's almost like their hobbies for a lot of them. Like just kind of thinking back to my EO days. So there was a girl that ran a clothing company for fluffy white dogs. And she sourced all of her clothing from China. She was Chinese, so she would go to the factories, order the stuff, and then sell it in North America. Done very well, but she had fluffy white dogs. It was something like she knew like the back of her hand. I think one of the mistakes that I see a lot of guys make, and I see it in the School of Entrepreneurship now too, because I've gone through the first batch of students, and a lot of guys aren't picking things that they're totally passionate about. And one of the things I've noticed about women is like, there's this one other chick that was totally stoked about electric bicycles. Sourced a manufacturer provider in China, white label branded it, started selling it in North America, did really well because, huge passion for her. Another chick I knew that did nonprofit swag, did really well with that. Another chick I knew that got into, how do you define it? It was a social and sports league, because that was her thing, when she was in university, right? So, I mean, there's that to be said. I see a lot of guys try to start up things just to make money, or because it's popular or it's trendy, or it's like, oh, I heard, if I do this, then I can make a lot of money. And it's like, the copywriting guys, the guys that do like the trinkets and Shopify store or Amazon, deployment for men's jewelry or whatever it happens to be. I have noticed that women do move into businesses that they know like the back of their hand.
Bottle breacher at delivering back a plan for a higher return. That's what matters. We're not talking about these women being as good as men. We're talking about them being better than men, as measured by return of capital. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, no. Again, imagine the tables were turned and he said something 180 degrees opposite to that. Men are doing better than women.
This isn't about equality. This is about supremacy. I'm sorry. And I think we should all be looking at this and saying, what do these women do? How do they do it? And why shouldn't everybody else do the same thing? I want these kind of returns from all of my deals, not just the ones run by women. I want it from all of them. And so I'm telling guys now that approach me about business saying, look at the attributes of this deal. Look at how it's structured. Look at the returns I've made on Wicked Good Cupcakes, or even Bottle Breacher, which is a brand new deal for me, is just killing it. And already.
Wicked Good Cupcakes is one of the companies he invested in. Let me just check this out. Pops up right away as soon as you start typing into Google. Wicked Good Cupcakes, nationwide cupcake delivery. Yeah, like I've seen this a lot, man. Cupcake stores. Oh yeah, these are the ones that are in the jars. These are like the jarred cupcakes. Anyway, let's keep playing this through.
Here we're talking about expanding honey funds to plum funds, which is a brand new platform. This is all growth. All of this is growth. So whatever they're doing is working. And I think it's hard to say exactly what it is, but the evidence is that they're very good at managing time, number one. They're reducing their risk and their volatility by setting goals that their teams can achieve. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And lastly, they've chosen markets intuitively that they can grow in. So,
I mentioned that earlier, right? They choose markets like they know like the back of their hand.
These are three evidences that anybody looking at these from a petri dish would say that's what they've done right. And I think that's the way I'm going to measure as I go into start filming season 7 in a couple of weeks for Shark Tank. We have 100,000 applications.
Wow.
I'm going to try and find more businesses like these businesses because they've already got
All right. Well, he's giving away the secret sauce to his peers on the show. I like Kevin O'Leary. He wrote a book a few years ago, and he also tried to, I guess, apply or run for the Conservative Party of Canada, the federal party, to become the next prime minister. But they they didn't want him in. Let's just say that. So he stuck to TV and investing money, which is probably a better deal for him anyway, a far better deal. But I think he's a great guy. I've met him personally, actually. If you've seen my School of Entrepreneurship landing page, there's a picture of me and him standing together at EO Whistler. He's not a tall man. He's a little vertically challenged, but super smart, well-spoken, smart businessman. You know, success leaves clues. So I always try to pay attention to and listen to podcasts or conversations with people that offer opinions on topics that I'm interested in. So when I saw the thing about female entrepreneurs doing better than his male investments, I thought, okay, you know, both of those things are right in my wheelhouse. So let's have a conversation. Hey guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that short clip. If you did, consider supporting the creation of content by checking out my supplement line. Pinned in the top comment below of this video in the comments, there's a link to the unpluggedalpha.com/shop. When you click through, you'll be able to land over here, and the entire lineup is broken down by category that it performs best in: estrogen metabolism, fat burning, your foundational essentials for health, immune health, performance, and testosterone support. If you check out with coupon code ALPHA10, you'll get 10% off on your first order. There's also the option to use the subscribe and save model, where regular shipments will be sent over to you on a regular basis, and that gives you a little bit of a discount, and your supplement facts are always broken down over here. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have an awesome day. And again, check out that link. It's pinned in the top comment below in this video. Peace out.